thank you so much to all the honorable speakers for giving us time to have a debate on this very important theater at this time. We know that the current Afghan political scene is undergoing very rapid developments since the United States reached a negotiated deal with the Taliban regime. And since then, we have seen, although there were negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan government, but there have been some hiccups in this engagement. And we have seen the Taliban actually trying to make their moves on ground rather than on the negotiating table. And all of this has clearly had an impact on the security situation within Afghanistan. And now we are also dealt with a specter of an increased role for non-state actors and non-state actors with private militias. And on one hand, the Taliban, of course, they are asserting their own agenda through their force on ground. And the Afghan government, of course, is trying to battle out these new challenges for the Afghan state. So I will not take any more time, and I will directly go to His Excellency Ambassador Sayyid Jalal Karim. And Ambassador, the floor is yours. Please enlighten us with your views on the current situation as well as on how Saudi Arabia can link up with Afghanistan and promote peace and stability. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to take this opportunity to thank King Faisal Research Center for Islamic Studies for inviting me and arranging such an important event at such an important time. I would also like to thank all the participants and the technical team for their technical support. And I would like to start my paper by the following points, just giving a preview about it. I would like to talk brief about the Saudi Arabian Afghanistan relationship, and then the Saudi role in the peace process, and then talk about the current status and where we are going. Within that, I would also like to talk about the US-Taliban agreement, and then finally, there are some recommendations that I might think would be helpful for this issue. Regarding the Saudi Arabian-Afghan relationship, Saudi Arabian-Afghan relationship has been a very strong relationship. It started very, very early 19th century, where Afghanistan was one of the first countries, Afghanistan actually was the first Islamic country recognizing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And then in 1930, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia recognized the rule of His Majesty King Nader Shah. And on 6th of May, 1932, the first friendship agreement was signed by Sardar Ahmed Shah, the king's special representative who visited Saudi Arabia. It was the first friendship agreement signed between Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. In 1935, Muhammad Sadiq Mujaddidi was appointed as the first political appointee of Afghanistan to Saudi Arabia, and then that followed by the visit of His Majesty King Zahir Shah, and then the visit of His Majesty King Faisal to Afghanistan in 1970, and the visit of President Dawood Khan in 1978, and then the Mujahideen, Afghanistan leaders, and President Hamid Karzai, and then late His Excellency President Ashraf Ghani to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian role has been always very supporting for the Afghanistan people, and also during the Mujahideen time, Saudi Arabia, with the help of the United States in Pakistan, supported the Afghan refugees, and also financially supported the Afghan war against Russia until the Russian forces left Afghanistan. And then, of course, we know that after leaving the Russian left Afghanistan, the Mujahideen among themselves went into a civil war, and Saudi Arabia, after that, along with Pakistan, and UAE was one of the few one of the countries who recognized the actual government of Taliban, which was conquering at that time 90% of Afghanistan, and Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. And the Saudi Arabian relationship with the Emirate of Afghanistan ended during the 9/11 attack and the accusations of Al-Qaeda and Daesh and other terrorist organizations taking Afghanistan as a base against other countries, being Saudi Arabia and other countries. Now, I would like to now come to the Saudi Arabian role in the peace efforts. It is very, very maybe rare that we would know that this effort of Saudi Arabian peace started for the first time in 1955 during His Majesty King Saud's time, where His Majesty, there was some incidents between Pakistan and Afghanistan. At that time, His Majesty King Saud sent Prince Musa'ad bin Abdurrahman, his representative to Afghanistan, where met with both Afghanistan and Pakistan government representatives and reduced the tension between Afghanistan and Pakistan at that time. Then, during the civil war of Afghanistan, 1993, His Majesty King Fahd took the initiative of gathering the Afghan Mujahideen leaders, and His Royal Highness Prince Turki Al Faisal at that time, upon the instruction of His Majesty, did a very, very important job of having the conference in Saudi Arabia, where all the Afghan leaders attended it and a peace accord was signed. But unfortunately, that peace accord did not continue very much. And again, the war between the Afghan factions started back in Afghanistan. An important point that we should always mention, that Saudi Arabia does not have any geopolitical interests in Afghanistan. Saudi Arabia has always looked at Afghanistan as a brother Islamic country, as a friend, and supporting Afghanistan as a Muslim country without having any other intentions of having any kind of religious or ethnic kind of background of influence in Afghanistan. So that is a very important point, because that allows Saudi Arabia to be always at one footage, at the same side of all Afghans, whether being Pashtuns, Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras. They will always look to Saudi Arabia as the leader of the Islamic world because of his support during the Mujahideen time and also during the past 20 years for the reconstruction of Afghanistan. Now, I would like to now take us to the current situation in Afghanistan. The current situation is not very helpful, and we can see that both parties, the Emirate and the government of Afghanistan, have escalated military, political, and media war against each other. Now, this effort is not in the benefit of peace, and in fact, it will hurt all the peace efforts that is being made currently by different countries and different parties around the world. We are actually starting to lose hope, where we have from both sides accusations regarding the civilian casualties, and such casualties are very, very concerning to all of us and the international community. The government of Afghanistan is blaming Afghans, neighbors, for fueling the war, and the neighbors and the international community would like to see a new government through negotiations, which will be all inclusive and is accepted by all Afghans, Taliban, the political leaders, and the government of Afghanistan. But till date, His Excellency President Ashraf Ghani has not accepted such an offer which is being made. And also, we know that a conference was held very recently in Rome, where United States and Europe and China, Russia, all the Afghanistan major players, for the first time in almost more than 20 or 30 years, have all agreed that the only way for bringing peace to Afghanistan would be a new government, an all-inclusive government that should be formed so that all Afghans see themselves in that. Now, we can see that there are military advances by the Taliban momentarily, which can change while the government is actually also trying to arm civilians under the name of public uprisings. Now, this is becoming a concern because Taliban trying to force their way for taking over the major cities or Kabul, and at the same time, a government trying to, making new militias for fight in Afghanistan will be a concern to the international community. The government of Afghanistan and Taliban should both know that the war is not going to be a solution to this issue. The Taliban should always think that if they go ahead and take Afghanistan by force, it will have a long-term consequences and might take the country to a very long civil war. At the same time, the Afghan government should realize that its prescription of peace by proposing early elections under the patronage of the current government and offering of some power sharing to the Taliban will not bring peace and will prolong the suffering of the Afghan civilians, as this solution has been refused for the past 20 years. Also, creating new militias and arming the civilian population to fight against Taliban will increase the chaos, as the international community has paid billions of dollars under the DDR program to collect weapons previously. So the government coalition inside Afghanistan also is very fragile. Most of the politicians' visions for peace is not in accordance to what the government of Afghanistan wants. They mostly support the international community's efforts in bringing a peace. Now, I would also like to talk today about the U.S. Emirat Agreement, which was signed, which was negotiated for almost 2 years and signed. Now, this was a very, very important agreement because during the almost two-year period of negotiation between the Emirat, Taliban, and the United States government, all different departments of both parties was involved: the intelligence, the military, the political divisions, and they did agree on a very important issue, which is the red line for terrorism. They agreed what the definition of terrorism would be, who would be the terrorists defined, and also the money laundering and the drug trafficking. So based on this agreement that was signed between the United States and the Taliban, I personally, from my perspective, I believe that the Taliban and the Emirat became an ally of the United States, just the same as the government of Afghanistan. So the United States have now two allies on the ground in Afghanistan, which is the government of Afghanistan, the Republic, and the Emirat. The only thing is that now the difference is that how to get these two teams working together for bringing peace in Afghanistan. So I would like to come and talk a little bit about the negotiations between the two parties, where it's going right now. We have the Republic team and the Emirat team. What does the Republic offers and what the Taliban is asking for? The Republic is offering the inclusion of the Taliban in the government, in the current government, by sharing power in some ministries and maybe some governorships and some other departments, and including some of the Taliban's military power within the military apparatus of Afghanistan. At the same time, they're asking for an immediate ceasefire, and they're asking for a lawyer jirga for some changes in the constitution of Afghanistan. And president is proposing early elections so that the new leader of Afghanistan is chosen. President has even given a time limit of 6 months or even 1 year for that. Now, let's see what the Emirat is looking for. The Emirat is looking for the formation of a new Islamic government, changes in the constitution, and the resignation of the current government and agreeing on the formation of a new government, and then ceasefire. So according to the current status, as we can see, I do not see that they are very close together, because President Ashraf Ghani has clearly stated that he is not ready to accept leaving the government and transferring the power to another government except through an election. While the Taliban and some Afghanistan political leaders, and then also international community, is asking the president that no, there should be negotiations on a new government, interim government, and that government should be leading by a new team, and all the Taliban, the government, and the Afghan politicians should be inclusive. So all Afghans should see themselves within this government so that we can see peace in Afghanistan. Now, finally, the most important issue right now, when the American forces leave completely at Afghanistan, Afghanistan is left with its neighbors, okay, which are playing a very instrumental role, will be playing an instrumental role in Afghanistan, peace or war. Now, we've seen very, very strong efforts from the United States in the past 2-3 years to convince the major powers of Afghanistan neighbors to play a positive role and not get involved in the ethnic or religious wars in Afghanistan. And we are very happy to see that Russia, China, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and even Iran, until today, have not been involved directly in this current war, between the Taliban and Afghanistan. And also, of course, Pakistan has been now very much involved in the peace process. And very lately, Prime Minister Imran Khan made an invitation of all Afghanistan political leaders and some other Afghan governments to gather in Pakistan and have one idea and one picture of Afghanistan peace. So Afghanistan neighbors' involvement in peace in Afghanistan is very, very important. The international community should help Afghanistan and its neighbors that they do not get involved in the current battle. So staying away from the battle and being completely looking at the whole picture, not a one-sided, will be fruitful for the long term of peace in Afghanistan. Now, some of the Afghanistan neighbors, for example, Iran, might be concerned of a more influential role of Saudi Arabia or the Gulf countries in the peace process of Afghanistan. From my point of view, because maybe they think that Saudi Arabia is looking for geopolitical or religious or ethnic kind of influence, but that is not the case, because Saudi Arabia is not at all looking at Afghanistan from a geopolitical interest kind of position. Why? Because Saudi Arabia does not have a border of 1,000 kilometers with Afghanistan. Saudi Arabia does not have $2 to $2.5 billion of economical interests with Afghanistan. It's only 60 million Saudi riyals. Also, we can see that more than 20,000 Afghani university students are studying in Iran. More than 200,000 Afghan students studying in high schools in Iran. And more than 2 million Afghans are living in Iran, comparing to 150,000 living in Saudi Arabia. So whatever Saudi Arabia does in Afghanistan, it will be only to support an Islamic nation and to help the Afghan people to get away from the suffering of war and famine and the poverty that we are currently looking. And we can see that in the past couple of years, Saudi Arabia has supported Afghanistan for more than 900 million Saudi riyals of development funds through the Saudi Development Fund, which we are very grateful for Saudi Arabia doing that. So this can show you that Saudi Arabia's approach to Afghanistan will not be an approach of influence, because the Afghanistan government always Saudi Arabia respects each other based on sovereignty. And finally, I would like to come to some recommendations regarding the current status and how we can go ahead and see a lasting peace in Afghanistan. First of all international economical help in Afghanistan should be subjected to the progress in peace process by both parties. This is very important. That will put pressure on both parties to really look at Afghanistan's future and getting along together with each other for building Afghanistan. The second is Afghanistan neighbors should refrain from fueling ethnic or religious war and keep an equal distance from all parties and avoid to get involved in the battle. That's very, very important. Number three, Saudi Arabia and the international community should help in reducing tension between Afghanistan and Pakistan. as Pakistan's role in bringing peace in Afghanistan is very important. Saudi Arabian relationship with Pakistan is very, very good. Saudi Arabian relationship with Afghanistan government is very good. Therefore, it will be important for Saudi Arabia and can play a good role in reducing this gap. Also, in order for Saudi Arabia to play an instrumental role with other Gulf countries in future of peace in Afghanistan, it is important that the international community and Pakistan and other friendly countries engage Saudi Arabia and find ways to work with the Taliban, because it's important that Saudi Arabia works with both sides of the equation. You will not be able to provide peace process mediation if you do not have good relationship with both parties. And you see, I know that they're seeing both of them from one side, from one eye, but it is important for Saudi Arabia to get engaged with both the government of Afghanistan and the Taliban in order for any future involvement of Saudi Arabia in the peace process. Now, the future government of Afghanistan should guarantee that Afghanistan, alongside the international community, shall fight international terrorism, Daesh, Al-Qaeda, and all other organizations, and will not allow Afghanistan's soil to be based for any activity against any country. That's very, very important. We need such assurances from the Taliban, from the current government, from the politicians, and everybody. And Afghanistan needs also, Afghanistan politicians and all parties need to sacrifice the government, the President Ashraf Ghani, the Taliban, and Afghan politicians to reach to an agreement on an all-inclusive government, to share the power and to have full respect for human rights, women's rights, and the rule of law, fight corruption, and to strengthen the democratic institutions and prepare the country for a transparent and fair election so that Afghans can choose their future leader. Also, the international community should support Afghanistan reconstruction and its fight against terrorism, drug trafficking, and not leave Afghanistan alone to fight its own battles. Finally, it is important that the international community should consolidate its efforts for bringing peace to Afghanistan, to avoid overlap of efforts by individual countries. All countries involved can play an instrumental role in achieving peace if efforts are consolidated. We believe we have hope that with the current international agreement over Afghanistan, especially the superpowers neighboring Afghanistan and the Afghanistan neighbors, with a little bit of efforts and pressures on all parties, I do believe we can reach to a peace in Afghanistan. And thank you very much for listening and allowing me to share my views on this subject.
My question to Ambassador, I will just roll out all the questions to three speakers, and then you can answer it respectfully. So my question to Ambassador Jalal is that we have seen Taliban delegations going to Russia, going to China, going to Iran. Do you think there is a sort of a soft acceptance of the Taliban and their newfound presence on ground by Afghanistan's neighbors? And what does that mean for the Afghan government, particularly when a majority of Afghan Afghanistan's border crossings are now being controlled by the Taliban? So effectively, the Afghan government remains a sort of landlocked within its own country. And what do you think ordinary Afghans, where do they lie in this power game? And you mentioned about the possibility of convening a Loya Jirga. How would the government and the Taliban, do you think, would appreciate or would engage with such a proposal? My question to Dr. Eleanor would be that you are seeing the developments on ground. What do you think? How are the, let's say, non-president government factions within Afghanistan, particularly the northern factions, different, and we also say different northern factions, the Tajiks, the Uzbeks, the Hazaras, and of course the ones in Herat. how are they seeing these Taliban advances, and is there any chance of an engagement or sort of uh, talks with the Taliban, or now they think that we have to fight it on the ground itself against the Taliban? And don't you, and as you suggested that you foresee fragmentation, how would such fragmentation impact upon the state institutions and structures of the Afghan government? And my question to Kamal, as one of our attendees put it, how much do you think the Taliban have changed over the time? How much are they pragmatic? How much are they, you can say, revisionary in their own theological doctrines? And specifically, do you also think that there is a shift of Taliban from Pakistan, and they are more accommodative towards other regional actors? And lastly, how would you phrase their relationship with Iran right now? All right, from Ambassador Jalal, please, can you answer?
Thank you very much. I'll address your first question, which is the traveling of the Taliban delegations to different countries. I personally believe that Taliban started at very early stages, looking at their relationship with important countries. They started very early with their relationship with China. They managed to secure that relationship a couple of years ago and have a very good, stable relationship more than 6-7 years ago with China. Later on, of course, Russia was very important for them. When Russian foreign minister requested the conference in Moscow, if you remember, Afghanistan government refused to attend that, and the Taliban was very, very happily, they answered, yes, we will attend. So they did give Russia a consensus. Okay, so they involved Russia and they made them, and they were involved. And so Taliban very, very cleverly played a very, very good political diplomacy at the beginning. And then lately, when the foreign minister of Iran invited both parties for direct talks, we know that Taliban has been refusing this to many other countries. So then again, they went and they accepted at a very short period of time. So they did give another concession to the Iranian government, showing them that they would, be able to listen to suggestions and any other comments from Iran. So overall, I think the United States of America had played a very important role in other than the Iran, arranging this issue for the Taliban, giving the Taliban the green light after signing the Doha agreement with them, and also working with even with India. Khalilzad went to India a couple of times, and tried to ease up that relationship between the Taliban and India. So politically, they have been very, very much involved, and I think they've been very successful in that. So and that is the reason that currently the government of Afghanistan is now accusing, instead of making the relationship better with its neighbors, now that's accusing all of the neighbors of supporting Taliban or being more pivoting toward the Taliban. Now, how does the ordinary Afghans look at the issue of the advances, or what is happening on the ground? Now, the Afghans have been, facing famine, corruption, security issues, all these issues in the past 30 years. They would like to see an end to this problem, and they would like to see at least their freedoms, being secured. Whether that's being done by the Taliban, that's being done by the government, they want an end to all of this. So a lot of Afghans, politicians, and the technocrats and the young generation, they are looking for a peace deal, and they would like to see a change in the government. All Afghans that I have talked to, from the top leaders of the politicians, they would like to see a change. They would like to see President Ashraf Ghani and his team to go ahead, get an agreement, and if they have to leave and come with another team, people would like to see that. Now, going to your other question, which is Loya Jirga. Now, the issue of the Loya Jirga is that I do not think that the Loya Jirga at this stage Taliban would accept it, because it will prolong any negotiations or any political settlement, because it will be very easy for the government of Afghanistan to manipulate the result of any Loya Jirga, or it will be easy to create new problems that it's not on the table of negotiation table. So the best solution at this stage, is the direct negotiation between the parties and the pressure, international pressure on both sides and from the neighbors to reach to a solution.
Mm, I'll move towards Ambassador Jalal with a couple of questions. Ambassador, there have been some questions regarding why why is the U.S. leaving the region while knowing that this vacuum will be filled by other actors and also by local non-state actors within Afghanistan, and also that how is this playing into Chinese calculations? Somebody also labeled it as the American withdrawal as destructive chaos for Afghanistan, uh, and also what's the Russian perspective on this rearrangement of the Afghan political field, and lastly, do you think that while China engages with Afghanistan and Taliban, do the Chinese and the Saudi Arabia, do they share or they have a similar fear of extremism, and can they have similar roles in maintaining peace in Afghanistan? So, how why has the U.S. left? Maybe role of China and Russia, and then lastly, fears of extremism emanating out of Afghanistan.
Sure. Thank you very much. First of all, let's talk about the U.S. leaving Afghanistan. Now, we know that the United States invested in Afghanistan quite heavily. The biggest donor to Afghanistan, the biggest country taking the responsibility for the military supply to the Afghanistan government, more than $89 billion and more than $1 trillion of expenses, in military expenses by its own forces. However, I think that the decision of taking out the forces of Afghanistan is a joint decision by both the Republican and the Democrat Party. Both, they do see that there is no more need of the American presence in Afghanistan. And I believe that a lot of that has to do with the agreement that is signed with the Taliban. I think that, that the Americans saw that an agreement with the Taliban could secure for them a future that Taliban will not agree to any other superpower or any other powers being involved in Afghanistan. And they've clearly mentioned that, they've clearly said that. So as I said at the beginning of my thing, I think that this relationship created by the agreement signed by them is like a strategic relationship created. So the Americans, they see that they have two strategic partners in Afghanistan, Taliban and the government. The only thing is that they have to now work together how to get them. Russia has been playing a more constructive role, for quite a long time now in the Afghanistan peace process. They have taken, they have laid back, in spite of the fact that President Ghani and Atmar Moheb has repeatedly visited Russia and tried to engage Russia in the Afghanistan politics militarily. But I think the Russians have seen that probably when the Taliban signed an agreement with the Americans and they went by it, 14 months, not even one bullet was fired on an American soldier. So they saw that the Taliban had the capability of enforcing an agreement to be signed. So I think that the Russians, in the long run, did not see their interests in supporting the Afghan government militarily. When we come to China, China's economic interests in the area are very important to it now, whether it's being the relationship with Pakistan, Afghanistan, and all the Central Asian countries, and then the linkage to the Gulf countries. So China would like to see a stable Afghanistan. Now, China does know that if this conflict goes further and it goes to a total chaos and a civil war, it's going to take a couple of years, minimum a couple of years. If we go to like Syria, for example, or Libya, for example, it's going to take hundreds of thousands of people going to be killed, and the whole infrastructure of Afghanistan is going to be down. And again, then we're going to have, especially with the way President Ghani is handling this issue of militia, distributing weapons to the militias. I mean, creating new militias and supporting the old militias, and trying to involve Iran, trying to involve Turkey. Every day a government people are going and trying to ask them, please come, whatever agreements you want us to sign, whatever, we are ready to do that. So for China, this is prolonging the Afghanistan war is going to hurt China's economic efforts, and also it will hurt the matter of that this issue could get further to Pakistan and destabilize Pakistan, destabilize other Southern Asian countries. And regarding the China, Saudi Arabia, China and Saudi Arabia, I think China's interest in Afghanistan is different than Saudi Arabia's interest in Afghanistan. China is an Afghanistan neighbor, okay, and it has an economic plan for Afghanistan, while Saudi Arabia, as I said at the beginning, is looking at Afghanistan as an Islamic country where it sees its duty. I mean, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed's new vision, 2030 vision, is emphasizing on a lot of the Islamic countries and strengthening the relationship of Saudi Arabia and Islamic countries. And Afghans, whether they are Tajik, Uzbek, Taliban, they look at Saudi Arabia as Islamic leader. So Saudi Arabia can always play an instrumental role, subject that the neighbors of Afghanistan do not get too much, curious about it, and they allow, like Professor Dr. Lenore said, we need regional coordination for all the players to play an instrumental role in Afghanistan.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Sayyid Jalal Karim, for giving us your time and your very, very important and precious comments.